Well, Life Raft Group started out the way I think most patient organizations start out, around the kitchen table. And we started because, large extent because of my wife, because all of a sudden a person who was dying from cancer, who had run out of every option, managed to respond dramatically, literally from her deathbed, to this new drug called Gleevec.
As many of you know, GIST used to be one of the most feared types of cancer, partly because it was not known as GIST at the time. There was some confusion about whether this even was a cancer. Was this simply some sort of a peculiar growth of cells that wasn't cancer? But it was always bizarre to those of us in the field because some patients who thought they had a benign proliferation would have the disease come back, spread, metastasize, and could die from that disease. So it never made sense, and it was really quite clear throughout the dark ages of the 1970s and the 1980s and the 1990s even, that our pathology colleagues did not have the right tools to identify just what was a benign process where cells were growing but were not really cancer cells versus what was a true cancer that looked like a benign group of cells. When we look back over some of the diagnoses from the 1990s, we realized that it was impossible for the pathologists of the day to really separate what was a malignant GIST from what was some other benign proliferation or what was a malignant sarcoma of a different type. The tools simply weren't good enough.
My name is Michaela, and I am 19 years old. I was diagnosed back in 2011 when I was 14. I found the Life Raft group. I had my oncologist kind of briefly tell me about it when I was first diagnosed, and it was all pretty much a shocker to me, so I was kind of like, I'm not even ready to like talk to other people about this. And I wanted to be fully enveloped in my diagnosis and knowing what I needed to do to be able to help myself and to be able to talk to these doctors and know what I need to be doing and being an advocate so I can just do the best that I can with my diagnosis and not let the doctors do everything. I need to be helping myself and knowing the things that I need to be doing as well.
We've made a lot of progress in identifying mutations for cancer, and we have new drugs that we didn't have before. The reason comes down to something much more simple. It comes down to wanting a grandfather to be able to live long enough to attend a recital for his grandchild. It comes down to a wife wanting to reach over at night in bed and feel somebody lying next to her. And in my case, it comes down to a story I used to tell that I never thought would catch up with me. And it was a story about a guy named Mike. And years ago, Mike had asked his family, he was becoming resistant to treatment, to throw him a going away party. And his wife called me, and they had moved the date up, and the going away party was going to be the next day. And so there I was, flying to Nova Scotia to this community center where Mike and his friends were gathered. And Mike was sitting in a chair, and he was kind of weak, and I was the surprise. I was the guy from New York who flew up and who he didn't expect to see at his going away party. And it was a great party. There were several hundred people there, and lots of music and lots of dancing. And later on that evening, Mike got up and he asked his wife to dance. And everybody in that room knew, everyone knew, that that was his last dance. And on the way home, back to LaGuardia Airport, Mike died. And I made up my mind I never want to see a man ask his wife for a last dance.